Hey, this is James Arnold Taylor, voice actor, the voice of
Yabba-dabba-doo, Fred Flintstone.
Johnny Test, who's 11 years old and totally awesome.
Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank, Tidus from Final Fantasy X. Oh, yes, and of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It wouldn't be Coffee with Kenobi without yours truly. The Force is strong here indeed.
Previously on Coffee with Kenobi.
There's over 200 books. And when I say over 200 books, that includes like the Young Jedi Knights novels and the like small little Fear of the Galaxy books. And so, you know, for every big like pill hardcover novel, there's, you know, a bunch of like youth, young readers novels that came out. And so there are so many Legends books.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
All the research for last week's show certainly clued me in, just as Randy was just talking about there at the intro, of how many books there are in the Legends line. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi, show number 162. We are your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, rhetoric, and the best travel tips this side of the galaxy. I'm your host, Dan Z, drinking One Nation coffee out of a copper-colored solo mug from the ILM crew. It features sabacc dice on the back and is a great-looking mug. Coffee with Kenobi is brought to you by MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. For all of your travel needs to the Disney theme parks and the cruise lines, as well as anywhere you want to go on vacation, be sure to go to www.mousefantravel.com, the official travel agency of Coffee with Kenobi. On CWK, I invite you to join me as we think about the mythology of Star Wars in a whole new way and maybe laugh a little bit in the process. You are here with your Star Wars family as we go to our favorite coffee shop and talk Star Wars. On today's show, Mark Newbold joins us for a new idea I had, which is to look at the Star Wars mysteries, those enigmatic moments that have challenged us for years. Tom has the news, and we will really dive deeply into what is going on in the world of Star Wars. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi.
And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Last week, I hinted around to the reveal of the Chicago Celebration logo from Coffee with Kenobi, and Patreon contributors got to see it early as promised, and it is a gorgeous look, a beautiful design. Corey once again outdid himself. Be sure to check out our TeePublic store or everything we have for you on social media. There will also be a banner on our website, so you can order your Coffee with Kenobi Celebration Chicago logo. We have t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, stickers, all kinds of great stuff, and I cannot wait to see all of you sporting this beautiful logo at Celebration Chicago in less than 80 days.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee is returning guest and great friend of the show and of me personally, Fantha Trax' own Mark Newbold.
Is that for me to speak? Am I supposed to speak now? Am I supposed to be a professional and know when I'm coming in?
How's it going?
It's going very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, sir. It is great to hear your voice. Of course, we chat, well, not as much as either of us would like, but we chat fairly regularly, so it's good to have you on officially so we can talk about a really cool topic. What can you tell us about what's going on at Celebration before we dive into the conversation?
Well, my plans for Celebration, I'm there for a week, and of course this time the show is 5 days, not 4, so it's an even bigger show. So ideally I'd like to come over for 2 weeks, but that's just not feasible, sadly. So yeah, lots of parties, lots of catching up with folks like your good self, and it's near as we're ever going to get to it. Literally, are you actually from Chicago? You're just outside Chicago, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm about a 2-hour car drive away, but we're there pretty regularly because our oldest goes to college there.
Right. This is the thing, you see, in the UK, I mean, I'm 2 hours from London, right? But I'm north of Birmingham, and Birmingham's my big city. So for me, the nearest big city is Birmingham. But in the UK, of course, everything's so much more squished in that you're only ever half an hour from a inverted commas big city anyway. So, but of course, you saying you're 2 hours from Chicago, to me, it's like I'm 2 hours from pretty much everywhere in the UK. So there's lots going on. I'm involved with the podcast stage again, as I was in London, which is very cool. So I'm looking forward to that. So it's going to be interesting. There's some new pods that I'm not familiar with. So I'm doing a bit of research on that, so I know what's going on. And there's some old friends on there as well, and it's going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to it. I always like Celebration. I think we all do. It's our Super Bowl, isn't it?
It really is. It's our Super Bowl for sure. And you, of course, Fantha Tracks has been on the scene for what, 2 years now? 2.5?
Where are we now? 15 months. Unbelievably, like only 15 months. I know it feels a lot longer sometimes, but then in other elements it feels like way less. But yeah, it is. It's October 31st, 2017. So we're into our third year technically, if you think about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it just feels like you're just such a mainstay in fandom, and things are going well. You've got a great team, and awesome to follow you guys on social media. You've got a lot going on.
It's fun. That's the main thing, and not that we never had fun, when we were doing previous sites. But this crowd particularly is. I think we're all a little bit older now, and there's a lot going on with Star Wars, and we're well aware we can't cover everything because there's just too much going on, And there always has been. There's always been the role play stuff. You go back 20 years, and West End had got so much going on. You could have done a website just about West End game stuff. And you could have probably done a website just about what was going on the PlayStation 1. There's always been loads of Star Wars stuff, but now it's insanely busy. So we just try and have fun. We go to a lot of events. So this year already, we've got loads of stuff lined up. Star Wars Fan Fun Day, London Film and Comic Con, obviously Chicago. Next week, me and Martin Keeler are going up to Scotland for Capital Sci-Fi, which is a big event up in Scotland. We've got Star Wars Fan Fun Day in Burnley, as I've just mentioned. So there's loads going on, and we may or may not do New York Comic Con again. I don't think we've decided yet, but we're already looking at stuff next year. But it's all about having a good time and making some memories. That's what it's all about. And the fact that the site's going well and the social media is building, not crazy building, but building nice and steady, which is probably better. And the YouTube's coming out good, and that's fun. So yeah, we're having a good time with it. It's very enjoyable.
Well, you mentioned Martin. Over the years, I've had the good fortune, of course, getting to know you fairly well, but some of the other team on Fantha Tracks, you've got some characters there that are quite fun to chat with. That's for sure.
Yeah, characters. Yeah, I think we could fill our own cantina if we got us all in the right place at the right time.
I'm glad you said it instead of me.
I think they all know what I think. It is. It's a good crowd, and everyone's very much about having a good time, but everybody speaks their mind, which is good. And it's always the way, with any group of people. There's not much of an age range. We're all within about 10 years of each other, I'd say mid-30s to mid-40s. Some a little bit older and some a little bit younger, but pretty much the chunk of it is in there. And so we've all either been married or got kids or been around the horn a bit. So it's while Star Wars can very easily and has been in the past for me, but thankfully not completely at the moment, can be all consuming. We know when to knuckle down and get the inverted commas work done, but also when to just hit the bar and have a drink and have a chat. So yeah, but there's definitely a good mix of characters, like you say. And just mentioning Martin. Martin's our one of our newer members of the team. Obviously, as you know, Brian and Matt and myself came from Jedi News, as did a handful of others. And Dave Tree is part of the team. We've known Dave forever and a day. So yeah, it's a good bunch. It's good fun. I'm quite proud of what we're doing at the moment.
Well, one of my favorite memories is when you and I and the gang, what was it? I think it was 2 years ago, toured Lucasfilm together. Or was it 3 years ago?
Oh, wow.
Was it 3 years ago?
2 or 3, wasn't it? Yeah, I never went to. I didn't do Rancho last year, so I think it might have been. Yeah, it would have been the year before. Was it the Rogue One year? Was it Rogue One when we stood in front of the big Rogue One picture? Yeah. Yes, that was a lot of fun. That was a heck of a day.
It really was. And then I met Martin last year at the gala.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. He's really knowledgeable about Star Wars. He's been involved with organising things before. So Celebration London in 2016, there was an event just before Celebration at the O2, actually. Funny enough, which is where I'm going tomorrow night for a different event. But at the place called the Brooklyn Bowl, which is sadly closed now. But he put on an event called Cantina with Ash, who played the Phantom Menace rap party, and Darth Elvis and the Imperials. Darth Elvis is a member of Fantha Tracks as well, and Blues Harvest, and their drummer Andy, he's a member of Fantha Tracks as well. So we're kind of connected with everybody now. And it was an amazing night. But Martin was involved with that, and he's always doing stuff. He's an organizer. Him and Brian are our organizers, very organized and orderly. I'm just flying at everything at 100 miles an hour with no, I'm like herding cats. And Booker's a little bit like that, but Martin and Dave and Brian are much more organized. So, which is why it works. So we've got in little groups, there's little members of the team that some are organized and some just fly at it, and it kind of works for having that mixture.
It takes a village, as you know. So let's go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to jump into our topic, which is some of those Star Wars mysteries that have had us scratching our heads over the years. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Coffee with Kenobi. Oh, pass the cream, would you?
It is certainly a big week for our CWK Patreon contributors, but I want to give a special shout out to our friends from Patreon, Dennis Keithley, Rebecca Raven, Terry Lee, Chris Kavarka, Angela Sauce, Wayne Booker, Aaron Harris, Melinda Wolf, Ben Elkington, Jim Capron, Yancey Evans, Mediocre Jedi, Connie Shee, BJ Smith, Caroline Maselli, Christian Dale, Nick Deco, LJ Sauter, Chris Metz, Jason Hall, Tim Bungeroth, Mark Suter, Mike Audette, Eric Struthers, Daz Davies, Jared Cantor, Brian McKinney, Thea Selby, and Jeff Ellis. Yes, as you can probably notice from week to week, our CWK Patreon family grows and grows all the time. We are so thankful and so appreciative of each and every one of you. And not only do you get to contribute to Coffee with Kenobi and help our show grow and expand into ways that we've always dreamed of but never were able to until Patreon came along, but you also get something pretty great out of it besides helping out and supporting Coffee with Kenobi. One of the main things you get is access to our exclusive weekly podcast for just $5 a month. You get 4 shows a month, including access to our entire back catalog, which has over 40 shows, and that is called CWK Pour-Over. It is a weekly examination with myself, Tom Gross, and Cory Clubb, where we look at popular culture, our lives, behind the scenes of Coffee with Kenobi, Star Wars, and so much more. Here's a clip from last week's show.
But I think, I don't know, he just seems like a neat guy that I would like to, sit down and have coffee with, which, Dan, I know you have. Cory, I don't know, have you as well?
Not in person. We've talked to him multiple times on the show, but
okay,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, he's one person by name that I'm excited about, but I think just about anybody. But my biggest fear is not being able to compose myself, and I don't mean like being screaming and like fanboy, but I'm like being like clamming up and just being shy and a little turtle and dropping into my shell when Daisy Ridley's standing in front of me, or Dave Filoni's walking by or something like that.
Well,
I'm nervous about all.
We'll do a lot of pre-show practice of how to handle things like that.
That'd be fun. Let's do that. Yeah. How to handle yourself in front of a celebrity.
Some tips.
Pass
and
out.
Think about this. No. Pass out. How to carry yourself when you run into Star Wars celebrities at Celebration, because you absolutely will, was one topic that we discussed and we talked to Tom about, because he has never been to Celebration, so we are helping to get his hype and excitement level in the right manageable area, because he's excited. We all are, and there are a lot of tips in that show, as well as every week on Coffee with Kenobi's CWK Pour-Over, that we hope you will be able to join us for in the conversation. Again, it's just $5 a month. Also on Patreon, besides t-shirts and coffee mugs, you have access to CWK Lens, which is behind-the-scenes daily posts and videos that you can check out. We also were able to share our Coffee with Kenobi Celebration Chicago logo there before anyone else got to see it. And those are, again, just some of the many perks to being a Coffee with Kenobi Patreon contributor. So if you're curious, go to patreon.com/coffeewithkenobi or click the link on the banner on our webpage, and it's all over social media as well. Thank you so much. One Nation Coffee is the official brew of Coffee with Kenobi. Be sure to go to www.onenationcoffee.com today and enter the code Kenobi10 to get 10% off your first order. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for a subscription service so you never miss out on the best coffee in the galaxy. Again, that's www.onenationcoffee.com, the official brew of Coffee with Kenobi. We are back, and the first one we're going to talk about, we picked 2 of them to look at, and hopefully this will be a reoccurring segment, just sort of as the muse strikes us, so to speak. But the first one we're going to talk about, Mark, is Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost appearance in Return of the Jedi. Now, to put a caveat out there, of course, there are reasons behind the scenes why George Lucas and Lucasfilm decided to make some of the decisions that they made, and some of them are just happenstance things. But what we're going to do for Coffee with Kenobi when we're looking at these Star Wars mysteries is think about, from a canonical point of view, how can we make this fit into our heads as far as how it complements and enhances the overall Star Wars mythology? Because I think that it does. I don't think there are accidents per se. These are really good storytellers. So this came up for me, by the way, because the other day I was watching Return of the Jedi again with my son Mason, my 5-year-old, and he said to me, "Daddy, why was Anakin in the movie at the end as when he was younger?" Or actually, he said younger because he's 5. And I said, "Well, that's a great question. Why do you think?" And he said, "Well, I think it's because that's how he wanted Luke to remember him by." And I thought, wow, that's pretty profound for 5. That's pretty profound for 45. So, I mean, what do you think about Anakin's appearance as a Force Ghost in Return of the Jedi? When I say Anakin, of course, I mean Hayden Christensen as opposed to Sebastian Shaw.
Yes. There's lots of changes, and of course the special edition was 97, but also there's the DVD and those later versions which tweak things up as well. And I think the Hayden one comes under that. Some of the changes I didn't like, some of the changes I did. This was one that I did like, and it's purely, and you can blow it out the water in a heartbeat if you want to, because you follow the logic that a Force Ghost, to me, this is my own headcanon, and I'm sure somebody will contradict it, but to me, if you've seen, and there's not many who have, but if you've seen a Force Ghost, to me, then that ghost and you have a connection. Like Rey and Kylo have got a connection, and they can get inside each other's heads. So that Force Ghost will present itself to you in a familiar fashion. So Ben appears to Luke wearing pretty much the clothes that he was wearing when he last saw him, pretty much the only clothes he saw him wearing, pretty much, give or take. And Yoda hasn't got the most extensive wardrobe in the world, so he's always going to pretty much look like a little green, frog thing. But Anakin to Luke at the end of Return of the Jedi, when you saw him as Sebastian Shaw, even when I was a kid, I always remember thinking, well, how we kind of even knew then in the early 80s that Anakin had been Vader for a good amount of time. He wouldn't have been an old guy when he went in the armor. He would have been a younger guy when he went in the armor. So when Luke sees Anakin as an older guy dressed as a Jedi, the physical Anakin would have never at any point of his life been an old looking guy wearing those clothes. He would have been a younger looking guy wearing those clothes. So when Lucas decided to throw Hayden in there and tie all these little neat little avenues up as he wanted to, which some worked great, some didn't, that was one that I thought, well, that makes more sense to me. That's the last time that Anakin Skywalker was when he kneels before Palpatine and takes the name Darth Vader. And from that moment when he stands up from that kneeling position, he's now Darth Vader, the Vader that Palpatine always wanted. And the last time he was a Jedi Knight, if Luke could have seen Vader's Force Ghost or Anakin's Force Ghost wearing the Vader armor and the helmet off, and he'd look like a younger Anakin, I kind of could have got my head around that, but then why would he want to present himself like that? Because he's, inverted commas, now a good guy again. So there's different ways you can read it, but to me, it didn't jar anywhere near as much as some of the other tweaks and changes they made in the special edition. So to me, yes, I think that is how logically Anakin would present himself as a Force Ghost to Luke. Because, and also we know as the Star Wars canon expands now in 2019 more than ever, they're filling in gaps, they're adding in stories. There's all these. I mean, for example, Discovery. I'm a big Star Trek fan, as you know. So now you've got season 2 Discovery. It's the missing chapter of Spock that you never heard of in the last 50 odd years. But they're going to fit it in there, and it's going to feel like it was always in there. And in 5 years' time, you'll forget that it wasn't, sort of thing. And I think Lucas was kind of thinking the same thing. At some juncture, Luke would have kind of known what Anakin Skywalker looked like as a young man, and these things would have been found out and learned, and maybe it would have been in a comic or in a novel or somewhere or other. But in a long-winded way, as I always do, that made sense to me. I think that was justifiable as a change.
Right. Yeah. The pros and cons of the special editions aside, from a storytelling perspective, what you said makes a lot of sense to me, and it very much ties into what Mason said to me. And as you said this as well, Anakin, when he was the good Jedi, the one that we knew would ultimately bring balance to the Force, that was in his wheelhouse of where he was as a person. That was before he became Darth Vader. That was when he was at his peak as a Jedi, but that is when he was where he was meant to be before he took a very, very sharp left into 25 plus years of big bad as Darth Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith. But it makes sense that he wouldn't appear as an older Anakin because he's older. He's aged prematurely because of the dark side of the Force, because of the horrible scarring and damage done to his body from his encounter on Mustafar. And it's not like they had a ton of Bactine or ointment that they put on his body before they encased him in that black armor. So he wasn't himself. Now, in the original cut, he, of course, was the actor Sebastian Shaw as he appeared. And that would have made sense for Luke to see him that way as an older, wiser father figure. But I think perhaps for Luke to see Anakin as a young man, very much in his prime, this was the Anakin that he always pictured when he was growing up on Tatooine, when he sort of basically fantasized about what it must have been like to have his father. So we tend to idealize our heroes, living and dead, and see the best of them. And this was probably Anakin at his best. That being said, if we time out and look at it from a storytelling perspective, does it work for an audience to see this? Well, I suppose that it depends on the audience. The challenge here is that we've now had this different change almost as long as the original cut itself. I mean, certainly the special editions are older than before we had them. And as you said, that was added in a little bit later. But it still is interesting to think about that, because Anakin here is not tortured. He is someone who is more fully fleshed into being himself. Now, that being said, though, Mark, if that's the case, why wasn't Obi-Wan put into it as Ewan McGregor? Well, probably for the same reasons that I just mentioned, because whether he was Ewan McGregor or Sir Alec Guinness, he was always the good at peace Jedi that he was meant to be.
Yeah. It's a good point you make, actually, about the way Anakin or rather the way Luke views him, because, as you say, when Luke always had that image in his mind, he's thinking of a young man like him. He's been spun a story by Owen as well, as much as Ben, in the short time that he knew Ben. So to him, like you say, that's his dad, the navigator on the Spice Rider. That's who he's imagining in his head. And the reality, I mean, it brings a tear to his eyes, doesn't it? The reality when the helmet comes off of what Vader has become. It's quite sobering. But yeah, and also there's a practical sense of, I'm sure at some juncture, I don't know, but I'm sure in my head, I'm thinking Lucas probably thought, well, maybe we do want to show him as a young. This is 1982 when they're filming it. We want to show him as a young guy, but we've just unmasked him and shown him as this elderly guy, and now we can't go and do a Force Ghost scene with another actor who's young playing Anakin as well. People will get confused. We know how confused Star Wars fans get when Rogue One came out and everybody said, "Oh, there's another Death Star." No, that's the actual Death Star. Oh, where's Rey? It's so easy to confuse Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
Don't realize, So I'm sure Lucas thought, no, just keep it simple, and let's just lay it down and play it out as it does. And George was always, I'll fix it later. Well, he didn't he? Like 20 years later, but he fixed it, so he seemed happy.
Well, of course, and it also provides some incredible connective tissue between the prequels and the original trilogy, because now you've got an actor that's in both in his prime. So, for when I show this to my students and they see Hayden Christensen at the end, nobody bats an eye. I think they're probably like, who is this guy? Because for us, Mark, we know Sebastian Shaw because that's what our Vader was for a very, very long time. But for many others, they would say, well, that guy was in there for 5 seconds. Why does that mean anything to anyone? So it's for us as an audience as much as anything. But again, storytelling-wise, I think there are some reasons there. And to circle back to the intro, that, as my son said, maybe the future host of Coffee with Kenobi Sunday, he said that's how he wants his son to remember him. And I think that's lovely.
Yeah, it's a very clever kid you got there. He's absolutely hit it on the head, I think. Totally.
Well, thank you. I'm a bit biased, but I appreciate that very much. So let's go ahead and take a break. The next one we're going to talk about for a Star Wars mystery that's out there. And by the way, we're not saying we solve these mysteries. We're just exploring them. Part of the fun of Star Wars, and certainly doing a Star Wars podcast, is the rhetoric and the discussion between friends in a positive manner, which is exactly why I had Mark Newbold on, of course. So let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, Han shot first. Have you heard this? Well, we're going to find out a little bit more. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Greetings. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
If you are planning your next Disney World or Disneyland vacation, you need to go to MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. They have signature service and expert advice to help clients maximize their vacation time and dollar. They can help your family enjoy everything the Disney theme parks and the cruise lines have to offer, help plan every detail, and share invaluable tips. Check out www.mousefantravel.com today and let them know Coffee with Kenobi sent you. We are back and diving into the news segment with our good friend Tom Gross, and we also have a celebrity guest co-host for the news segment that some of you might recognize. Let's face it, all of you will recognize him. Cory Clubb's joining us too.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
It's going well. We brought in the ringer for a very important news story, which we will get to. But Tom, take it away.
Another round of announcements for Star Wars Celebration was released on StarWars.com this week. Coming to the Windy City this April is the powerful 6'11" actor Chewbacca Unis Soetamo. This will be a celebration debut for the Finland native. He posted on Twitter this week, quote, "Very excited to finally say that I'm coming to Star Wars Celebration in Chicago. Hopefully I'll see all of you there, and we're gonna have a blast." Also announced are Sam Witwer, who brought Maul to life in the Clone Wars and Rebels, Greg Grunberg, who plays Snap Wexley, BB-8, Lady Proxima and Rio Durant puppeteer Dave Chapman, Greg Proops, who plays the voice of Star Wars Resistance Jack Sivrak and Garma, as well as Fode from The Phantom Menace. Rounding out the list are Paul Casey and Ian McElhenney, who are Admiral Raddus and General Dodonna in Rogue One, and of course Orly Shoshan, who plays Shaak-Ti in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith.
So, right off the bat, this is kind of great because in our Patreon show that we did last week, we talked about who we'd most want to meet, and we didn't bring up Eunice or any of these actors, but this is a wonderful addition. This is only the second batch of announcements. It seems like every week we're going to find out about more and more actors being added to this list. It's pretty great. I will tell you guys, having the good fortune to meet Eunice on 2 occasions and interviewing him once, that he is super charming, super down to earth, and incredibly tall. So he's going to be fun. People will love him.
Wow, he's tall. That's cool. I'm glad he's tall.
Cory. You think you're tall? No.
Yeah, I think I'm tall.
He's taller than me. He's much taller than you.
Oh, great.
And you're a striking man. Don't get me wrong.
Someone to look up
Chewbacca.
to. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. See, just a glimpse of the chemistry you can hear on our Patreon shows. But what do you guys think about this news?
I think it's huge. I mean, like you said, you're rattling off names there, and it's this is just the start of it. This is so cool to see that they keep announcing this stuff, and it's only January at the time here now, and they're already announcing folks that'll be here, and a smattering of different Star Wars eras, right? So all kinds of different folks from the the cartoons, the films, to all kinds in between. So I think it's really cool to see their great longitude, I guess, of actors coming in for the show.
Yeah, and I love the diversity of talent here, from a puppeteer to voice actors to the sets and everything. It's great. It just builds excitement and builds it even more. But let's not forget also the release of the Celebration poster, which of course is a stunning side-by-side, light side versus dark side, heroes versus villains from the entire Star Wars saga, split with the Celebration logo lightsaber. what did you guys think about that?
Well, I definitely have some thoughts about it, but I want to hear what you guys think. Cory, especially you, because you are the designer. So what do you think?
Yeah, honestly, I think it looks great. It's got the left side, right side thing going on. Very symmetrical. The way you look at it, obviously down the line, the blue and red, good and evil. A lot of big bads on here. The biggest thing that stuck out to me was that it looks very close to a Drew Struzan poster. Drew, known for classic movie posters from the 80s to 90s to 2000s, really. Though he's kind of stepped back from the limelight a little bit. But this one's an excellent replication of as far as like coming off of that. And it's cool to look at it. The more I look at it, the more I see different things along the way. And if you guys notice, there's something missing from this poster.
What?
Well, the Falcon's missing. Is that what you mean?
That could be one. That could be one thing. There's something bigger.
Huh.
What is missing?
Stumped me.
I see Vader. I see Luke. I mean, Poe's not in it. Is that what you mean?
I was going to say Poe's not in it. He seems to be a major character, and I thought I was missing someone else. Maybe I'm wrong here now.
Vader's.
I don't know.
In
It just
Solo's
Vader's in it.
Luke's
That's
in
for
it.
sure. Yeah. I guess there's no young Anakin.
Dooku
I guess was kind of
featured prominently. Well, no, that's true. Anakin's in there. It's a good point. I think it would make more sense for Anakin to be there than Finn, and I love Finn, but I guess Anakin is pictured top right. Okay, Tom, what do you think about the poster?
It's hard to top Cory's analysis always when it comes to things like that. But I loved that it tied in, all eras. And I love the top to bottom, side to side look of it. There's a lot of balance to this, which is to me a bit of an ironic statement. Balance of the Force, balance of evil and good. I enjoyed the coloring, the light blue power of a lightsaber on the Rebels side, and the dark red shadowing, I guess that is, of the Sith lightsaber on the other side. I don't know. I really like it, but I'm not an aficionado of art, but so I just sit back and I look at it and I'm like, it's got everyone I want on it.
Well, I was going to also mention that Qui-Gon Jinn is absent as well.
True, and so is 3PO.
I don't know if that's a big player. And 3PO, yeah. R2.
I see Grievous down here now that I'm looking at.
R2's at the bottom. Sorry,
R2's there.
Yeah, I think it's cool that Yoda's sort of the foundational piece. I don't really like it.
Okay.
I mean, think about the Celebration Anaheim and the Celebration Orlando posters. They had a different look about them. This is like what is it? I don't know. Is it photorealistic?
Photorealistic. Yeah.
This looks like something that we could have easily seen for like the 10th or 15th anniversary of Star Wars or Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith or something. And it's fine. Don't get me wrong. Whoever created this is so much more talented than I could ever possibly dream to be, and my hat is off to them. Absolutely, all props to you, whoever did this. For me personally, I feel like Celebration should take kind of a different sort of a style, all of its own, a little more of a, not focused on looking like a movie poster, but more like an event, like Celebration. Like, remember the beautiful green for Celebration Anaheim, Cory, we had in front of the podcast stage.
Yeah, like it was the kind of lasered out, cut out style, kind of three-colored thing.
Not cartoonish, but more like graphic.
Yeah, more graphical. Yeah, and more. Mm-hmm. See, that's the thing. It's interesting too. Is like this is more of a movie poster feel to it. Like I said, the re-releasing the films to the theater or something like that.
I feel like I've seen this 100 times.
That's a good point. Honestly, now you say that, I kind of lean towards that, sway towards that thought. Why can't I do something original maybe that has to do with like the Celebration, have Chicago built into it for Celebration Chicago. Yeah, I don't know.
Focus on a specific aspect. Like the others have focused sort of on the original trilogy, really. And you don't have to do that. Yeah. Focus on this sequel trilogy that's amazing. And we're going to have a wrap up to, in December of this year. That, I don't know. or showcase some characters from Rebels or Resistance or something like that. I don't know. I'm not going to say I was disappointed, but I was underwhelmed.
It's very what do you call it, Skywalker focused, and that lineage and legacy versus like Rogue One or Solo or some, like you said, those offshoot series that are just kind of not necessarily the core.
Sure.
This is very driven towards the Skywalkers.
So you guys would have more insight on this than I would, having never been. Now, will they have a series of posters that will go along? So,
what I'll do is go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say they might have some other like designs that have to go along with if you get a badge or something. This might not be on it. You might have a character based badge. I think they've had that in the past where they had like I think was it Anaheim? They had the sketches.
Inquisitor was ours for the media, which was cool.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was the Inquisitor. So, but it was still kind of that same style, a little bit. I think this. I don't know if this is just kind of an overall, just poster that you can just see along the way. Most of like the signage and stuff they will use would be a little more minimalistic. I'd hope so. That would be this busy.
See, that's my fear. But yeah, the badges usually take some sort of a homage or cue from the main poster. So this might be. I mean, it's fine. Sure. Like I said, it's fine. Yeah, but
sure,
I want it to be a little more fresh.
All right. Well, interesting analysis. We'll have to see what comes later. Moving on with the news, Penguin Random House announced recently that a new Star Wars book titled Alphabet Squadron will be hitting the shelves this summer. Written by Alexander Freed, who also wrote Battlefront: Twilight Company and Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, among other novels, comics, and video games. Alphabet Squadron takes place after the events of Return of the Jedi. 5 New Republic pilots, each flying a different type of starfighter, follow the command of New Republic General Harrison Dula. Their task is to track down and destroy the mysterious Shadow Wing, a dangerous force of TIE fighters taking revenge as the Empire dwindles. These pilots have to learn to fly together if they want to protect the new era they fought so hard to earn. Alphabet Squadron is scheduled to hit the shelves of your favorite bookstores on June 11th.
Any truth to the rumor that they will also be a part of Alphabet cereal?
Alphabet soup. I thought it was Alphabet soup.
Well,
yes. Alphabets. Cereal.
Coming from my perspective as a writer myself, I am fascinated by this idea because I've always thought it's cool that they name some of the ships out of like obviously letters of the alphabet, and they're also designed that way. So it's like we're gonna get new ships like the H-wing or the G-wing. There's gonna be like a really odd one like the S-wing, and just really kind of like all over the place. I don't know. I think what's interesting to me about this is that Harrison Dula is a general. I think that's pretty cool. Here she is again doing her thing. And then again, the Alphabet Squadron, that just sounds cool. It sounds a little goofy sometimes, but like they're going after the you say Shadow Squad? Is that what it was?
Yes, Shadow Wing.
Shadow Wing. So that even that sounds cool. So it's like
sounds like a cool
Top Gun in space, man.
Right there. Well, exactly. That's how I know Matt Martin tweeted out something that was showing the Top Gun famous high five on the runway when this news came out between Marvel and Del Rey. I love it. Yeah, and so I mean, there's certainly a fan base that loves the fighter pilots and the X-wing books from the expanded universe that Legends line were very, very, very popular and certainly have a very beloved section in a certain sect of fandom. And, the crossover stuff is great, but I guess much like the Battlefront novel and stuff that doesn't involve the major main tier characters doesn't usually resonate as strongly with me. But I mean, I appreciate that it's out, but I wasn't as over the moon on this one either, per se.
I'm pretty pumped about this, actually. I was excited to see it, Cory, for many of the same reasons you mentioned. I just the story of the pilots of this era, and super pumped about Harrison Dula as a general.
If she's the main character, then I'm all in.
Sounds like she might be.
if she is.
Well, yeah, it's possible. And you mentioned the Shadow Wing. Let me put the second half of this story in. And Dan, you alluded to it as well. In connection with the Alphabet Squadron, Marvel Comics is creating a crossover title to be released prior to this in April. The crossover will take place during the events of the novel. But the comic series written by Jody Houser, who we also know from Marvel adaptations of the novels of Star Wars Thrawn and Rogue One, tells the story from the point of view of the Shadow Wing pilots, who see things a little differently than the Alphabet Squadron. They feel the rebels are the danger to the galaxy, and the order of the Empire is the path to safety and security. Star Wars TIE Fighter include art also by Roche Antonio and other artists, including art from the creative team of Darth Vader, Giuseppe Camuncoli, and Elia Bonetti.
Nice. Well done.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
So a little bit extra there. So we'll get a little tease of it from a certain point of view, and then we'll get the novel.
Yeah. So that's true. So again, we'll get the crossover. We'll get some more characters to populate this universe. And the connective tissue that is there. So one will be from the Rebels' point of view and one from the Imperial point of view.
I love that.
Cool.
I think that's exciting. I think that's exciting storytelling right there.
Oh, I did too. I mean, but we've already had elite TIE fighter pilots and elite X-wing pilots, and I don't know. I don't know. As I said last week, I'm at a place where I need a little bit more adrenaline in my Star Wars universe, and this isn't necessarily the thing that's going to do it for me, but that's not a bad thing. I do applaud this concept, and I think it could be, if done well, could be really fascinating. So I'm going to operate on the wait and see approach.
Can I slip one more thing in there before we wrap this up?
Yeah.
Consider the audiobook, Dan. I've been in your seat before where I've kind of been like, I don't know, this sounds very good. Maybe I'll read it, maybe I won't. And because it's hard to choose which ones to read Star Wars novels, because you don't know if it's canon or if it's not canon, whatever. But if you have ever listened to an audiobook, Star Wars, or Lucasfilm and Disney now have done an excellent job of doing the audiobooks and having almost a movie in your mind. So I would suggest possibly going that way and trying to take this title on. So
that's probably what I'll do. I mean, they Penguin Random House Audio sent to me. I'm done with the Pirates Price one that Jim Cummings read, where he reads the entire thing in the voice of Hondo Anaka.
Wow.
And it was another
cool.
one.
That's gold right there.
Yeah, it was fun. So that's a good idea. Maybe that'll be more of an interesting way to sort of jump into that. Because you got a pile. I'm still working on the Padme novel that's coming out, I think in early March. Disney sent me a copy of that. So lots to pour over. Yes. So speaking of pour overs, this is the lineup you can hear every week on our CWK Patreon show, as I alluded to early in the show during our conversation. And thank you to our Patreon contributors. And speaking of thank yous, Cory, thank you for joining us. And Tom, thank you for bringing us the latest news.
Of course.
So let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we will return to my conversation with Mark Newbold. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee, tea, or me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's Coffee with Kenobi.
One Nation Coffee is the official brew of Coffee with Kenobi. I start my morning every day with One Nation Coffee because it is the best. You can start your coffee subscription so you never miss out on the best coffee in the galaxy by going to www.onenationcoffee.com today. Plus, enter the code Kenobi10 to set up a coffee subscription and save 10% off your first order. We are back in this topic for Star Wars Mysteries, those enigmatic moments that have challenged us for years. This one is, I don't know if it's so much of a challenge because it's certainly generational perhaps, but I think of all the changes that have been done over the years or the different lenses we've been asked to wear to filter the Star Wars story, I think Han shooting first, you won't find too many people who disagree with this decision. But Mark, you've got some great theories and ideas behind this that I'm not quite aware of yet. So I'm looking forward to you explain to us why this is in fact such an important thing that Han did indeed shoot first.
You've built me up now. I've got to come out with something really good now.
I have faith in you.
I'm glad you do, because I've got no idea where I'm going with this. No, I think the whole Han Solo arc was one of the purest arcs, I think, in the original trilogy, because Luke's got he's got the hero's journey, as we all know, but it's a difficult journey because of the complications of his sister and his mentor and his training and his relationship with other people. There's a lot going on for Luke. I think for Han, it's a bit more linear. He starts off as a rogue and he ends up as a kind of a reluctant hero, but you've gone from a moment of 45 minutes into the first film when you've met Han Solo and he comes in and the film steps up a beat, and he's there face to face with Greedo and he shoots him under the table and there's no messing. He shoots him cold. Greedo's probably going to stun him, maybe. I don't think Greedo's going to kill him, but I think Greedo's probably going to stun him. But Han's like, I'm not taking the chance. I've got this 17,000 waiting for me. I'm not letting this guy mess this up. I've already done my cargo. I can do without the hassle, and just does him under the table. So you're taking Han Solo from a point of he will shoot somebody essentially in cold blood, all the way through to Return of the Jedi, when he stood on headquarters frigate with Lando, and he goes basically, here's the keys to my car. Go and save the galaxy. We knew it was Lando's ship at some point then. It puts it all in a different perspective. Now we've seen Solo, which, can I just say, is a magnificent film, because not only do we now know the intensely personal relationship Lando had with the Falcon, and Han knew that. So for Han to give him that ship back and say, well, this is the ship you need to use to, she's the fastest ship in the fleet, all that, and don't get a scratch and all these things, which is even more of a jokey line now we see what Han did to the Falcon in the first place in Solo. To sort of parallel that with Han, not versus, but Han and Beckett at the end of the film, when Beckett's giving him the whole talk and Han just shoots him because he knows Beckett's gonna gun him. Well, Greedo never got the chance to say, you did the right thing, kid. I was going to shoot you. And Beckett did. So Han's learned from his previous experiences. I just think that speaks more to the original arc of Han Solo. I think if you have Greedo shooting and missing, one, it was just not a good special effect. The way they had Han dodge and just everything about it just didn't work. And it made Greedo look lame because he's literally sat 2 foot opposite and he misses. There's no sense to that at all. So I think that as one of the changes was an error. And I think it was it kind of felt like it came from the same time period. It really did, give or take a few years, as when ET Special Edition came out, or the 20th anniversary edition of ET came out, and they replaced all the guns with lights and torches, rather.
Yeah.
That's it. So they were trying to tone down the peril, if you like. And for Spielberg, I always remember thinking, and it was that era when CG was really beginning to ramp up, and you look back at it now, and the special edition CG has aged far worse than the original models from the 70s, because CG is so flawless now, and if they had the will to do it, they could go back to certainly the original trilogy and a lot of the classic films and make them look, spanking brand new again if they wanted to. The CG puppet in ET was, at the time, it was like, wow, new ET stuff. You look at it now and go, oh, there's better stuff than that on kids' TV. It's not held up as well as you thought it would. But I ramble as usual. I think Han did shoot first, and not more to the point, only Han fired. For me, to make that character arc work through Empire and Jedi, I think he had to be that cold-blooded killer whose heart, we now know from Solo, he's always had a heart, but he's looking out for himself. He's business. When it needs to be business, Han Solo is business, and I think that line of story and plot works best.
Well said. Yeah, I hadn't even thought what I was thinking about for this. I wasn't even thinking about the Beckett thing, but I'll get to that. I think, and this is a key thing I emphasize to my students when we're breaking down these films, the important thing about Han Solo is that he's not Luke Skywalker. That's probably one of the most important aspects of him from A New Hope, and I'll explain why that is. Basically, I mean, even down to the wardrobe, and these are things we've talked about, many times over the years, many of us. Luke's all white. Leia's all white. Han has a white underneath, but he's got a black vest, right? So he's not a bad guy, but he definitely lives more in the gray because he's had to live more in the gray. He's seen more ugliness of the galaxy. He's been at the end of a blaster many, many times in his life, both from the Empire as well as other ne'er-do-wells throughout the galaxy. So he's had to survive. Plus, you've got to realize that he's our cowboy. He's not really, I guess some might say he's the everyman, although I've never known anyone like Han Solo in my real life. I wish I did. No. I'd certainly be interested in hanging out with them and spending more time listening to their stories. But he is someone that does protect himself. It's not that he's selfish so much that he doesn't really have anybody to care about. And I think that's an important aspect that we sometimes forget about Han Solo. He's not a bad guy. Kira clearly points out he's the good guy. He looks out for Chewbacca. They have a bond closer than many brothers do. And when it comes down to it, yes, the Falcon being dangled over his head is something that they would take. Certainly it's not something that he looks at lightly. But it's also something whereas he knows he's got to be careful in this, dog-eat-dog world. If I don't blast this guy, he's going to take care of me. And I don't think that Greedo had set this done because it wasn't a blue light. It was just that it was that same red blast as before. And then he knows Greedo enough to know, and he knows what these bounty hunters are like, that if he doesn't take care of business right away, he's going to be over. So they're not going to tie because Han is always one step ahead. I mean, that's not really true, is it? He's not one step ahead when it comes to getting the hyperdrive fixed on the Millennium Falcon, but he's one step ahead as far as when it comes to flat out survival. He doesn't make any missteps when it comes to that. The only time he does, and it's not even a mistake, is through pure love when he goes to show his son, hey, I am defenseless. I'm at your mercy. I love you. And that's a key thing. So this has to happen. He has to initiate this blast and survive, because if he does it at the same time or shortly after as a reaction, then he's a reactionary guy. He's not when it comes to survival. Yeah, he flies by the seat of his pants. Yeah, he's a bit reckless. Yeah, he's certainly a cowboy. But that's one of the reasons we love him. Plus, it makes Luke look much more squeaky clean in the original trilogy until we get to the Return of the Jedi, because he is a true foil for Han Solo, Luke and Han together.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I like the thought. I've never thought quite of the white under the black, because that just, as you speak, it just goes back to the Han and Kira scene. She says, I know who you are. You're the good guy. And he's like, I'm not the good guy. I'm an outlaw. He doesn't want to be the good guy, but he can't help being the good guy. And I've always thought Chewie was his conscience. Han had scrabbled around and done stuff, and he had his own conscience, but he was so in love with Kira, he wants to get back to Corellia. He's got this whole plan that's not quite come together, because you cut to 3 years later on Minban, and he's still not got back. He's still scrabbling around trying to figure it all out. But as soon as he meets Chewie, it's Butch and Sundance, and it starts to work. So he's got all these little facets to him. But when you parallel him to Luke, they are so different. And of course you add in that it's weird. I think it's only those of us that were around for the original trilogy can think of it in those terms. The fact that there was kind of a love triangle between Han, Luke, and Leia, and the fact that nothing progressed. No wonder Splinter in the Mind's Eye became non-canonical very, very early on. Because that was a big part of that original trilogy mindset, and I'd love to be able to go back to those days without knowing all the stuff that was ahead. I'd love for you and me to be having this conversation in 1982.
Oh, wouldn't that be the best?
It totally would, as we are now, but, not knowing all this stuff and just being able to chew it all over, because I wonder how similar or different the conversation would be. It's, but thank goodness for Solo, because I think it's added so many layers, obvious layers, like L3 is a very obvious layer to add to the Falcon, but just lots of other little personal interchangeable and thought moments, and especially between Han and Lando, but the Kira thing adds a lot of layers to Han as well. So I'd much rather with that one go back to that moment of Han shooting first, in the same way as I think in Empire when Luke leaps from the gantry, and originally on the early special edition they had him screaming as he fell down, and I hated that. It was like, no, he's not jumping out of fear, he's jumping out of defiance.
That's right.
Why would he scream if he's jumping out of defiance? He's basically giving Vader the middle finger and going, no way, man, I'm off. I'd rather die. And he jumps, so why would he scream? So
plus, he's a pilot, so the G-forces wouldn't even bother him.
Well, there is that, yeah. But it felt like it felt to me in moments, and it's very presumptuous of me to think this, because George wrote all of this, or wrote it with other people that understood the depth of it all better than we did, because they wrote it. But it just felt to me in that moment, that doesn't make sense. Don't you know why Luke wouldn't scream? Luke would fall silently. It was beautiful. There's always those moments in the films when John Williams would let the music drop out, like the speeder bike chase, or the sonic detonator bomb in Attack of the Clones when it goes off in the asteroid field over Geonosis. There's no music; it's just the sound effect. That always worked really well, and it just felt like, well, you pitched that right. Why didn't you get that right? And there's all these little moments, but. Hand shot first. There you go. I'm rabbiting on as usual. Hand shot first.
Hand shot first. That's the official stamp of Coffee with Kenobi and Fantha Tracks. I think I can say.
Absolutely. We have immunity.
Very good. Very good. Well, if you see Mark or myself at Celebration Chicago, which is just a few short months away, be sure to weigh in on what you think about this. And also, please let us know if you have any topics you'd like us to explore for Star Wars mysteries. In the meantime, Mark, where can everybody find you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello?
You can find me on Twitter at prefect_timing or at Fantatracks, I should say. If you need to drop me an email, it's Mark at Fantatracks. Pretty much everywhere at Fantatracks. And at Celebration, for the most part, I'll be on the podcast stage. So you can find me at the podcast stage. And there's going to be loads going on there. So that's going to be a nice busy area of the show. So looking forward to that. It's only about 80 days away, I think, as we speak. So it'll be here before we know it.
It certainly will. Thank you again, Mark. Let's go ahead and take our last break. When we come back, we will close out the show. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are the podcast you're looking for. This is...
Before we get to email, I want to thank our CWK sponsors, One Nation Coffee and Mouse Fan Travel. Be sure to support them the way they support our podcast, and remember to listen to new and archive shows of Coffee with Kenobi wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, Spreaker, Overcast, Blog Talk Radio, Player FM, or our website, www.coffeewithkenobi.com, or wherever you enjoy listening to your favorite shows. And if you listen to the show through iTunes, please leave us a review. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, where you can find some past videos of our CWK Coffee Chat, Pinterest, and Tumblr, and we'd love for you to check us out there. Be sure to listen to our CWK family of shows too, including Legends Library, Resistance Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia. Please leave a review for each of their shows as well, and be sure to subscribe to each of them individually, as they all have their own feeds now. In addition to the places I just mentioned for Coffee with Kenobi, you can find me twice a month on the podcast Looking at Lucasfilm, part of the Jim Hill Media Network, as well as on Twitter at Mr. Zer, MRZEHR, and you can find my writing on CWK's website, as well as StarWars.com, where I'm an official blogger there, and on IGN, where I contribute articles on Star Wars, as well as other popular culture topics. Don't forget to check out www.patreon.com/coffeewithkenobi to help support the show, as well as get access to CWK Pour Over, which is our podcast, our weekly podcast, not heard anywhere else. There are also t-shirts, coffee mugs, and so many more opportunities and ways for you to not only support the show, but get something pretty cool out of it as well. That is going to do it for show number 162 of Coffee with Kenobi. A big thank you to Mark Newbold and Tom Gross for joining me this week. If you have a Star Wars mystery that you want us to explore on a future Coffee with Kenobi, please write in and let us know at the places we mentioned above. Thank you as always for joining me and the rest of our hosts for a cup of coffee. We will be back next week for more Star Wars conversation with some of your favorite Star Wars personalities. This is a podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.